Good day all, I am Nicole again and today I will be talking to you about my learning process with the learning theory that we've learned so far. We will be discussing the different psychological approaches, the different types of memories, multiple intelligence, emotional intelligence, and autobiographical beliefs and memories with my learning process. So, how do you learn in the past and present? For me, I learned through both cognitive and behavioral approaches. Today, I learned a lot through the cognitive approach, especially now that I'm doing school and trying to do upgrade training in the military. On the other hand, I would have to say that I've learned many of my upbringings as a child through my environment. The environment can have a huge impact on behavior as it may create fear or phobias. Similes associated with harmful outcomes can cause avoidance behavior. Unfortunately for me, fear of fights or arguments is partially what prompts my earliest memory as a child. As a child, I witnessed several times my mom being beaten up by her ex-boyfriend. Because of the frequency and intensity, fear of fights was grained into my head. Now, let's move on to multiple intelligence. Bodily kinesthetic and interpersonal intelligence in multiple intelligence are two of my highest scores, with a score of 75% and 69%. Moreover, this must explain why my hobbies and passions involve these two types of intelligences. I love to dance and play sports. I am always constantly moving and have to keep myself busy. I always enjoy working with others and try to find many ways to help them out. Next, we'll talk about procedural memory. As a baby, my procedural memory was limited. Fortunately, as time went by, my procedural memory developed, and now this time memory I would have to say is one of the easiest for me to remember. Today, my procedural memory is portrayed through my day-to-day routines. This routine involves hygienically cleaning myself, driving to work, exercising, playing sports, or coaching children, helping customers, and doing schoolwork. Next, let's talk about emotional intelligence with my memory. I like to think that I have high emotional intelligence as I often tend to think about others first. I like to view my own strengths and see how I can use it to help others. I like to view other people's perspective before making any assumptions. Unfortunately, I do have several emotional buttons that hinder me from learning. The need to avoid conflict and the need not to look selfish. The need to avoid conflict is partially because I learned to fear fights at a young age. The need not to look selfish was learned from my values installed in me at a young age. I was always told not to brag, but to be humble. This can have a huge impact on how I learned, as many people can step all over me by trying to control me. I obviously still have certain emotional intelligence areas that I need to work on. Now, let's look into multiple intelligence and self-efficacy. The irony for me, because it's said that females tend to be higher in verbalistic, linguistic, and natural intelligences. But for me, those are two of my weakest points. With these two scores being so low, you'd think I do horrible in online learning, as I am not able to speak clearly or intelligently and visually watch videos to help me learn. Fortunately, I like to think that I have high self-efficacy and determinism. I am determined to surpass all stereotypes of having a low score and graduate from college. Now, let's talk about different types of memories. Research showed that females tended to recall more episodic memories than males. I was able to demonstrate this by showing my first ever tragedy and victory. My first tragedy was when my grandma passed away when I was 10, and my first victory was when my elementary school, won a competition for junior police cadet. As a female, there probably needs to be more work on this study. While I can recall many past events, most of them are within the past year. It took me a little bit to rack my brain and try to find these events. It was also a lot easier for me to remember tragedy than victory. Partially, this may be because my family's tragedy had a huger impact than the victory of winning a competition. I learned that we learn from both positive and negative aspects of past experiences. Finally, in all, I've displayed that my learning has changed throughout my whole life. I learned through cognitive and behavioral approaches, multiple intelligences, procedural, episodic, semantic memory, emotional intelligence, and autobiographical beliefs or memory. All my examples provide a decent way that I've learned and continue to learn today. Thank you. And please see, these are all my references. Have a great day.